on today's episode.
As a little kid, I always wanted to be an Olympic champ.
We can endure anything and adapt and pivot and change. Wrestling gave us that ability.
I would say nothing in life has impacted me more than the things wrestling has taught me in terms of self-reflection, resilience.
Toughness. Some guys have it, some guys don't.
Adversity, 100%. How to pick myself up and be a man after I failed.
And everything that has shaped my life and where I'm at today would not be there without the values and basically the lessons I've learned through the sport of wrestling.
For me, wrestling saved my life because it allowed me to focus and channel my energy.
We're fortunate if you wrestled, because if you wrestled, natural talent helps, but it's 5% of the ingredient. It pales in comparison to heart and technique and effort.
It humbled me, taught me humility. Nothing can humble you more than wrestling. I think it's the learning to adapt, right? You learn how to adapt, you learn how to solve problems.
You know, if I look back at my time I spent wrestling, if they gave me one thing more than anything else, it's mental toughness.
Welcome back to the show. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's get into this episode with Steve the Bear Mocco, two-time national champ, once at Oklahoma State, once at Iowa. Who could say that? Not many. Maybe he's the only one. 2008 Olympian, and now he's the head wrestling coach at American Top Team, trained the likes of one Jorge Masvidal, Tyron Woodley, Dustin Poirier, and the list goes on. So sit back and enjoy this episode as we take you to Coconut Creek, Florida. But before we do, quick shout out to our fan of the week. It's Buck Watkins, Buck_Watkins. Give him a shout, give him a follow. Buck, thank you for the support, and keep on listening, brother. Now, let's sit back and enjoy this one with the Bear, Steve Mocco.
Steve Mocco, welcome to the podcast, my man. How are you?
How's it going?
It's going great, man. Thank you so much for taking the time. If we go back to Bergen, New Jersey, or North Bergen, New Jersey, back in the 80s, that's where you got your start in wrestling. I mean, kind of talk us through how you got involved in the sport and kind of what that progression was like from when you started to how you got to Blair.
Yeah, I was lucky. You know, my brother wrestled. He's a lot older than me. You know, he's 11 years older than me, and so I kind of came up around him. And you know, he was just kind of like getting involved. You know, he had a really good team. He wrestled for Fairlawn. They had a lot of studs. It's so crazy because one of the guys on his team is down here now, and his son comes to our club. And when we go up there, they go to his club over there in New Jersey. But yeah,
Wow.
it's we got a lot of good guys to look up to, you know, on his high school team, and then on his college team. I used to go with his high school team as kind of like their mascot, kind of like just sitting around all the time in practice. And then that's kind of how I started. You know, I went to their local rec. Then went to a bunch of clubs in the area. I went to a lot of different clubs. Really fell in love with the sport that way, and you know, then started wrestling in high school for St. Benedict's Prep in Newark, and then I wound up transferring to Blair after my sophomore year. You know, I just won junior nationals, and then when I went to Blair, I really like opened my eyes. It was like it was a great experience. A lot of you know. But Buxton, he's a professional coach. You know, he's always coaching. You know, even at Blair, I always tell people, man, he's a D1 coach. You know, everybody he's coaching are D1 kids. They're just a lot younger. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So he definitely was used to dealing with you know, high caliber, talented athletes, and making sure that they push themselves. You know, which is hard to do, especially at the high school level. You know. I think that prepared me for my true freshman year to wrestle D1 without redshirting, you know, because he definitely made sure that I was pushing myself on a daily basis.
Well, and the maturity to live in a boarding school when you're 13, 14, 15 has to be a big change. You know, I can't even imagine what that's like. And, you know, I think saying that Blair's a boarding school is putting it lightly. It's one of the elite institutions on the East Coast, super wealthy place. I mean, was that kind of a culture shock for you to go from North Bergen to to Blair? Were you wearing uniforms and suits and shit every day?
Yeah, man. Obviously, it was, and it was like, but it was in a good way, you know. Like I really felt like I felt like it was good, you know. Like the teachers, the people, they were all very positive. You know, the experience was awesome. But it was a cultural shock.
Had to be, man. I mean, you lived with Esposito when you were there, right?
Yeah. We lived in a dorm with a bunk bed and a couch, and, a dresser and a closet. It was tight. It was tight in there. We lived for 2 years. Me and Zach. Me and Zach had been friends for a long time. We both wrestled for the Edge. You know, I kind of around the time of like when we were coming up in elementary school, Zach's brothers were like kind of star wrestlers. You know, Zach's brother Dave and Matt and Pete, they were all like, you know, like kind of the examples for the younger guys in the club, you know.
Got it.
So we had known each other for years.
The first time I heard Zach Esposito's name, I was really young, but there was this guy from Illinois, Israel Martinez, Izzy style, which I'm sure you know him.
Yeah, I know Izzy.
Wrestled. Yeah, I mean, that guy. So I grew up in Illinois, and you know, at the time, he hadn't started Izzy style yet, but his dad ran this club, Martinez Fox Valley Elite, and it was like one of the elite clubs before there were like academies like the Edge. But he wrestled Esposito, I think, at like the Espoir Junior Cadet. Yeah, and he beat him. And because he was supposed to go to Iowa and then went to school in Idaho, a junior college, and won out there. But that's the first time I heard about Esposito.
He actually moved to Iowa City and lived after. Like he won JUCOs, moved to Iowa City, and he actually lived with me and my cousin Pete for like a year.
No shit? At Iowa City?
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
That Iowa team,
yeah,
if you, Mark Perry, and Izzy would have been there, whew, man. That would have been
we were all in the room at the same time. Me, Mark Perry, and Izzy, yeah.
Man, that's a guy, Izzy, who's, I mean, he is so, he's just such an interesting cat, man. He's done so much with wrestling. I know he's out in New Mexico now, but still runs the club out of Chicago. But that was the first time I heard about Esposito. And obviously he went on to be a multiple-time national champ, coach at Oklahoma State. So, like, growing up, you're around all these great guys. I've read that your dad would drive you out to Foxcatcher even, which is mind-boggling to me that you were out at Foxcatcher. But you were also involved with a guy that a lot of people don't know about, Roman Rudiman, who multiple-time Tbilisi champ. I mean, talk about that a little bit, because I don't think anyone knows that story. Like, who was that guy, and kind of how did you come in contact with him, and what did he do for you?
Well, I met him. I met him through my brother at the time was training at Foxcatcher part time, so he got to know Dave Schultz pretty well. You know, at the time, I think he was crashing on Dave's couch, which was, you know, not uncommon. A lot of wrestlers did. He was really open that way, you know. But yeah, we got to know him, and I think he took Joe one time, because we live close to the NYAC. We live right on the border of New Jersey and Manhattan. So he took Joey and I came with them and my dad into the city. My dad had worked out at NYAC as a kid too. You know, he had like trained there. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of, they met Roman through that. And then Roman had a club in Fairfield called the NJAC. And you know, Schultz told my dad, he was like, if you know, like, keep him with Roman, because he's you know, he's very talented. He's a special athlete. Dave had known Roman from like back in the day, competitive. I think Roman was coaching in Poland when Dave was competing, and they had trained together at camps and that. So you know, at a you know, like I think 9 or 10 years old, I started going to his club in Fairfield, and then basically just kind of latched on to him. Kind of went wherever he went. That's kind of why I went to St. Benedict's, because he was a gym teacher there. So I like, you know, he would I would go to the high school practices and we'd work together after the practice or during the practice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But no, he was a very, very good technician, awesome coach. Probably spent more time with him than any other coach. You know, like, because he stayed with me all the way up until you know. till through 2008, even after 2009. You know, he had passed on. He had a heart attack. Thinking like 2011 or 12.
Yeah.
But awesome guy, phenomenal human being, man. Made a big impact in my career, in my wrestling style, 100%. You know.
He is one of those guys where, because of the Soviet and communist time, you know, the political scene, from what you read, he wasn't allowed to get out. But I mean, if the guy won Tbilisi multiple times, you know he was an absolute stud. And
I mean, I know he beat Russ Ellison multiple times. He was a 4-time that Grand Prix champion. Won Tbilisi, like
beat the Peterson.
I think he won. Beat Peterson. Beat Russ Ellison. He beat a lot of other guys from the. I mean, he won the USSRs, I think, one time. It was rough. It was hard for him to get out. I think there was a lot of anti-Semitism at the time. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
he had a couple close matches, and they just kind of went with the other guy. That's kind of how that goes sometimes, you know, over in those countries.
Yeah, the selection process isn't like what we think it is here, where it's a tournament and the winner goes. It's a little more hand-picked, so to speak. But I mean,
yeah,
everyone knows that the best wrestlers are in Russia, and more specifically, they're in Dagestan and Ossetia. And so the fact that, and I think he was from Belarus maybe, but the fact that you had someone like that working with you every day, man, that is just an incredible opportunity, an incredible advantage. That was all set up by your dad, which, you know, he was super influential with you and worked you pretty hard. And, you know, like when you were 11 years old and the family was broke up a little bit, is that when you decided to say, hey, I want to be an Olympic champ, I want to be a national champ?
As a little kid, I always wanted to be an Olympic champ. You know, like I always like watched the videos and stuff, and you know, as a young kid, I remember listening to the tapes with Lee Kemp and oh man, I'm slipping on the name. He was a doctor. He was a sports psychologist kind of before the time. I think he's like Gilroy, maybe. I could be messing up his name, and I'm sorry for butchering your name, but it was awesome. I got his tapes at the Edge, and Lee Kemp was on it, and they were just like talking about. It was way back in the day before sports psychology was even a thing, and it was phenomenal. And I remember listening to Lee Kemp, you know, like making chairs in his house and pretending like he was winning the gold medal. So I'm like, I'm going to do that. So even as a little kid, I was like thinking about the Olympics and jumping up on like a chair with, you know, like, and there was like a second and a third place chair, you know what I mean? But
wow.
when you know, like when that whole went down, that's when I really focused on like winning and being really competitive and making a name for myself when I was, you know, 11 or 12 years old, you know?
And the fact that the sports psychology wasn't even a thing back then, but you were exposed to it early, kind of reminds me of, like Mike Tyson said that when he was like 15, Customato would like hypnotize him almost and play these tapes to him over and over and over, and he'd have him close his eyes and listen to this guy kind of pumping him up. So that was kind of similar to what you were doing at a young age as well.
Yeah, man, I can't think of the guy's name. It's on the tip of my tongue, but it was awesome. Lee Kemp it was like this doctor was taking Lee Kemp through his sports preparation and adding stories and you know, different facts and studies and also different experiences of other athletes that he's worked with. And man, it was awesome. It was like a force tape thing, and this was like a tape deck thing that like comes in like a book. You open it, and you know, like there's 4 on one side, 4 on the other. It was like 8 cassettes. You know what I mean? It was cool. We traveled a lot, like you were saying. We used to drive to like the Ohio State Fair. We would drive to Battle Creek, Michigan, Amarillo, Texas. You know, we would drive to all these tournaments in the van and stuff and wrestle different places. So he'd put those tapes in, you know. It was a lot of fun, and it was good. But that was like my first experience of like thinking about the Olympics and stuff, you know.
So did visualization play a big role in your wrestling career?
Yeah, I think it did. You know, I think it did. I think you know, visualization is a good tool, and I think I used it for most of my career.
So let's fast forward a little bit. So I'd love to see how it plays in here. So your freshman year, you come into Iowa. Everyone's talking about, the Bears coming to Iowa City, and it was awesome. And you wrestled Rollins twice at the Big Tens and the Nationals, and he got the better of you. But then your sophomore year, you beat him every time. So talk about, like, coming after Nationals your freshman year, what would you, like, visualize about the Rollins match?
Man, Rollins is a tough opponent. He's always been a tough opponent. We wrestled a lot. I always knew I was going to have a tough match anytime we met each other. My freshman year, I came up a little short. I just had to get off the bottom, and I couldn't really get off the bottom. And that kind of like really motivated me going into that sophomore year. I basically, probably was good for me in the big picture, because it I found like a new gear in training, a new gear of like being into something, because I was like really into wrestling after falling short that freshman year. That was my main focus. Yeah, it was good, man. And we had a good match the next year. I think we wrestled like 2 or 3 times. We didn't wrestle in the finals that year because he had an ankle injury. But I was visualizing us meeting in the finals again, because he was that good. He wound up getting injured and defaulted. I think he like tore something in his ankle or he had a bad injury in his ankle. So,
right.
but we didn't meet up in the finals. But that's what I was thinking that we would.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, for 2 guys to wrestle that much, had to be in your mind. And after your freshman year, like, kind of how long did it take you to get back on the horse and say, all right, screw this, let's get back going again? Yeah, I didn't achieve my goals, but I'm ready to get back after it. And the reason
right after that.
Really?
Yeah.
Man, you just went right back at it. I was just going to say that I always wonder how long kind of it takes for that to kick in, because we were talking to Jaden Cox, and his junior year, he lost to Snyder in the semis and kind of, didn't do what he wanted to do. Same for John Reeder. He had a junior year where he didn't get it done. And, it's always interesting to hear different guys talk about kind of what that process was like Tuesday after the Nationals, when they're all alone and there's no people around and it's real quiet, and kind of what that moment of no return is to get back on the horse.
Man, I was kind of down, really down on myself, really down on what had happened. Brian's kind of was watching me. He's kind of worried about it a little bit. So that night we went to sauna, did like a hard workout, which honestly was like therapy for me, because it was a distraction of what was going on in my head. And then we got back up to Iowa City. And I started training, like pretty quick. I remember he gave me a dummy and told me to go up and down in Carver, and he didn't give me a number, so I just figured I would just come and do him until he came and got me. And it was a while. I was out there for a good while. I stopped counting. I forgot how many I had done, and then he ran up to get me, and then he was like, how could you not get off bottom if you could do that many stadiums with a dummy on your back? It was like one of those throwing dummies.
Wow.
And he was like, "Now take the rest of the week off." I think this was like Monday. The tournament was on. It was like Monday morning. The tournament was on Saturday. He's like, "I'll see you Monday." So like took the rest of the week off, came back Monday, and then started training real hard.
Literally a week later. God damn, that's savage. Man.
Yeah.
So
honestly,
workout
I was in such a bad place mentally that it helped me a lot. It helped me deal with it. It was almost like therapy,
And what was it? I mean, your sophomore year, you were on an absolute terror. Kind of like, what was it like for you then? Were you just completely blocking out all our distractions, totally laser focused on wrestling at the time? And would you say that was like one of your most focused years of wrestling?
Yeah, I would say my sophomore year, I was definitely the most focused. Yeah, I was definitely focused on improving and wrestling, scoring. Yeah, yeah, definitely.
You
I didn't
must
have
have
any other
been
things
just
going
in a
on,
special place, man.
Yeah, I was in a good place because I didn't, I was a college kid. I didn't have too many, other than staying eligible and in academics. I didn't have anything going, so I was just like able to really like make that the center of my life,
Absolutely. And going into nationals that year, you're back at the NCAA tournament. It's Saturday night. It's maybe 2 hours before your match. And you had been there the year before. Like, kind of take us into like, what's your self-talk like an hour, 2 hours before a match, and kind of what's going through your mind? Are you trying to keep it calm, or are you trying to get yourself fired up and ready to go?
Man, my freshman year, I was too into it. I think the night before, I was thinking too much. Like, all right, if he does this, I'm gonna do this. So I think that kind of like affected me a little bit. So my sophomore year, I tried not to think about it too much the night before. You know what I'm saying? Like I would do my workout and then that would be it. And then try to watch movies and like distract myself the night before. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some people prefer that versus just kind of overthinking it because it wears on you emotionally and mentally, and you just get drained before the match.
It affected me that match. Like I needed to get off the bottom. I had like gone over this, 100,000 times before, the night before. I didn't sleep. I was thinking about too much about getting off the bottom. When the time to actually do it, your brain doesn't know that you're not doing it. You're just thinking about it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So you get it done that year, and then you kind of surprise the wrestling world a little bit. You take the red shirt, but then you transfer to Oklahoma State. I'm a huge fan of both programs. John Smith, one of the best to ever do it. You maybe not with Burroughs now, but at the time he was. How would you describe the differences between the Oklahoma State and the Iowa room?
There's a little bit of differences in the culture, right? But they're not all that different when you actually look at what they're doing every day and how they're preparing themselves, and they both want to win really bad. You know what I mean? Yeah. The differences I would say is more in the culture. Like one is they focus a little bit on I would say that they're the same. Honestly, they're the same. If anything, they're just a little different cultures as far as having like Oklahoma State has a southern undertow to the culture. People are a little bit more relaxed, but the wrestlers train the same. The wrestling practice is very similar.
And it's funny you say that because on paper, or at least what you hear in rumors, is that there is a big difference, right? It's more technique versus brute strength in wrestling, which it's kind of hard to believe that both programs aren't super technical. So I was really curious coming into this on what you thought the biggest differences were.
Honestly, I think the years that Iowa focused on brute strength and stuff, there was like their bad years. Like they got to be able to score points. If you look at their best wrestlers like Mark Perry and Lincoln McRae, the Brands brothers too, they had like phenomenal technique.
Yeah.
They work on technique every day. Like they come in with the guys they work with. They train them, small groups, big groups. You know what I mean? They pick up technique that the team's struggling as a whole. They go over it in practice, and they wrestle hard. It's the same thing. Oklahoma State does the same exact thing. It's kind of crazy,
It's probably interesting for you to get there and you're like, shit, this is more similar than I thought.
They both do strength and conditioning. They both run. They both do stadiums. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I mean, at that level, there's only so much
like wrestling is a simple sport. There's a lot of like different elements to it, but it's pretty simple. It's like, if you take him down, you score 2 points. If he gets away, he gets 1. If you turn him, you get back points. You know what I mean?
That's it. Yeah.
And both coaches have competed at a high level, so they know what works and what don't work. You know what I mean?
I mean, you can't think of two guys that are more intense than John Smith and Tom Brands.
Yeah, they're both super intense. You know what I mean? Definitely. I think Coach Smith is man. When I was competing there, he was like extremely intense. He wasn't as tense to the public eye, but like, man, like he was an intense dude, you know?
How do you mean? Do you have any stories? Anything that comes to mind you can share with the audience here?
Yeah, a lot of stories. I remember, I think it was Michigan State. I remember because it was similar to what happened at Iowa. Like, I remember one time we wrestled at Iowa, I forget where, but they stopped the bus in Tipton. It's like a ways away, and they had everybody run from Tipton back to Carver to get home. You know what I mean? But it was similar. Like, I forget where. I think it was Michigan State. Man. Oklahoma State wrestled there, and team did really bad. So, like, I think it was like midnight or 1 a.m. The Coach Branch came knocking on everybody's door. Coach Pat Smith was the assistant at the time. They came and like pulled everybody out of their hotel. No, this is at Oklahoma State.
Okay.
I was just saying it's similar to how they did it at Iowa, where they made everybody run home from Tipton. You know?
Yeah.
But,
so what was the time here at Oklahoma? Where were you guys at?
I think it was Michigan State. I think it was. Maybe it was Michigan. I don't know. It was a dual meet. We were on the road. We were in some like little hotel with like a little gym. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And like a tiny little gym, just barely like 6 different things you could do, you know? So like there was like 18 of us. They pulled everybody out of the hotel rooms. We went down to this little gym. It's probably like 1 a.m. And it was like, it was rough, man. It was a rough workout. It was probably definitely a 10. He had them like doing kind of a circuit on the equipment there. Then they had them doing like push-ups and stance of motion. Then he had another group outside running. You know what I mean?
Holy shit. This is 1 a.m.
They were
the hotel lady's like, what the hell is this?
Yeah, it went on for a while, man. I remember because like it was on time. Like he was like clocking the time. It wasn't like Tabatas. It was like 30 seconds or a minute goes or something like that. You know what I mean? And man, Espo was doing sit-ups on this old school like sit-up board. You know, the kind that you could like, God, this is like a long time ago, so you could imagine what the hotel exercise equipment looked like, right?
Where you lock your feet in, though? You kind of put your feet in there?
Yeah, you lock your feet in, and it's like a board, but you could slant it at different declines. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He did so many sit-ups, man. He like wore the skin out in his on his lower back. You know what I mean? Like on his lower back, kind of like by where his tailbone's at. And man, they had to like keep an eye on it for infection till it healed over. You know what I mean? It was pretty funny.
Dude, man, people don't know that about Coach Smith, that he's that savage. Man,
he is a savage. He wants to win. He's super competitive. You know, it was. You know, he doesn't play that as much out front, but it's in him. You could tell. You know.
Wow, that's crazy.
But he's a super good coach, man. He's an awesome coach. You know, he's awesome to wrestle for.
I can't wait to get him on here eventually. I had Chris Perry on and kind of got some purview into it, man. But he's just an awesome guy, and I just love hearing him speak. Anytime I see an interview with him, I listen to it like 5 to 10 times. I mean, I love his philosophy on the sport.
Yeah, me too, man. A lot of knowledge there, you know.
Absolutely. Now, you were part of some really great teams at Oklahoma State. Were you part of the run when they won 4 or 5, right?
I wrestled 2 years there, and they won both years that I was there. So I think it was part of that run, yeah.
So you had Esposito, you had Johnny Hendricks. Was Rochhold there as well?
Yeah, Rochhold, Pendleton. Yeah, I think that year we had 5 champs. My junior year, we had 5 champs.
Man, and you know, Askren's very popular now, and him and Pendleton had some battles. Man, just all those guys there, that's insane. Pendleton, I can't even believe it, man. So it had to be a lot of fun to walk into a tournament back then and just be the dominant team, kind of like when you were at Blair, where you guys would walk in and just crush everybody. Like, what went into your move to switch to Oklahoma State?
Well, man, I competed in 2004 to make the Olympic team. I didn't make it. And I was looking for, I was thinking about just moving to the training center. And
quitting
going,
college and doing
full-time freestyle. Yeah. But, you know, my mom kind of talked me out of it. She was a school teacher. She wanted, like, she's like, you're already halfway done. Get your degree. And at the time, they had 3 Olympians. They had Guerrero, Cormier, and Jamil Kelly, right, on the Olympic team.
Yep.
So like, I figured that I had a phenomenal freestyle program. They had half the Olympic team was coming out of Stillwater. So that kind of was my motivation for going there.
Yeah. No, actually, now that you say that, I kind of remember that's what went into it. And then you ended up living in Colorado Springs with Terry Brands for quite some time. And then ultimately made the Olympic team. Now, I know we have just a few minutes left, Steve. Just want to ask you 3 questions that I've sourced from some of my buddies here in Chicago. They were pumped that you were coming on, man. So the first is, what went into your decision not to go into like a full-blown MMA UFC career?
No, I think I did. Like I definitely did. I had a bad neck injury after. After I think my last fight, I had a going into it. I had a pretty bad neck injury. Started getting numbness and atrophy and kind of was my I pulled back trying to figure out what was going on with it, and that's kind of why I stopped fighting. At the time, I didn't know if I was going to coach MMA or what I was going to do, but that's why I stopped competing. I had a pretty bad neck injury. But leading up.
But at the time, though, you were like thinking this could be something I go full into because Kane was doing it. I mean, you placed higher than Kane every year at nationals, so okay.
No, I was fighting in the WSOF. I think after that fight, they were talking about maybe I was going to get one more, or maybe a title fight, or maybe then. And this was before the PFL. They were called WSOF, and then maybe try and go into the UFC or somewhere else. Like try and go to a different organization. But, like I think before that fight, I kind of hurt my neck training and never really recovered. So after it, I spent like a lot of time trying to figure out what had happened. Like I was like basically trying to like figure out what was injured. I knew something was wrong and wasn't quite right because I was losing strength and, what my body wasn't working right. And then I found out later it was a neck issue, but that took some time to try and figure out. There was a lot of shit I was trying to. Took a few months, and then when I found out it was a neck issue, I was like, I just basically was like, I wasn't really making kind of money to train through something like that, and I really didn't want to get the procedure to get it fixed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just pulled back a little bit. I was gonna try and look for a coaching job maybe somewhere or something. And then ATT, the people at ATT said, hey, man, why don't you just stay on and help guys out, coach wrestling? And I was like, absolutely,
I mean, what an awesome job. And also, I'm a fan of the warm weather, even though I live in Chicago. I used to live in California. Can't beat the weather in Florida, man. coming from a New Jersey guy.
Yeah, I miss MMA. I like all the time. It toys with me about like, get another fighter, but I think that never goes away.
Yeah, I was gonna say, for someone who was such a competitor
I always like think about
long.
trying to like get another wrestling match too here and there, like a dual meet or something like that. But I don't think that shit ever goes away. I think it's always in the back of your mind. It's just something that you live with,
Man, I mean, like I was saying, you're such a competitor. How could it not go away? I mean, if we were to organize some kind of duel, man, I'd love to. Who would your dream matchup be? Would it be someone like a Gable Steveson or like a Snyder? I mean, who would you have in mind?
Any of them. If it made sense, like it was a good match, I would be interested in it.
Call Jesse Jameson. Call Beat the Streets. Let's get it set up because next year might be a little light since it's the Olympic year. We might need to pull some guys out of retirement to get them in that duel.
Yeah.
So, second to last question is, I don't know how much you still follow Olympic freestyle wrestling. I'm sure you do, but got to have a couple predictions from you, man, because, the Olympics, there's only 6 weights, and we have some studs at the upper weight. So if you had to predict our Olympic team from, like, JB up, right, because Dake might come down, and then at Taylor's weight, Cox might go down or he might go up. Like, if you had to say now who the Olympic team's going to be, Like, what would it look like for you if you had to put the Steve Mocco bet somewhere?
Man, I think Dake is going to break through. I think they're talking about him going up, though, right?
I thought Dake was going down to Burrow's weight next year.
He's going to go down to Burrow's weight again?
I think so. I mean, he's got a hell of a match coming up this weekend with Derringer. That's a good match. But
yeah, that'll be a good match.
But you think,
so
let's say
hypothetically. Weekend, right? How good are these guys wrestling now, you know?
Unbelievable. And, like, Derringer might be the best wrestler in the world at that weight because he's been so active. Dake hasn't wrestled since the World last year. So it's like, how can you say that Dake's still number one? I mean, he is, but Derringer's been killing everybody, you know? So,
yeah, it's going to be a fun. Well, we'll go backwards. Let's go backwards. I think Wzdowski will be the heavyweight, probably. You know, like he's pretty much claimed that spot. No one's coming close to him. I think Snyder, obviously, be the guy, you know.
What if Cox
then it gets kind of hairy, right?
Cox might go up, though. I had him on.
He might go up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to beat Snyder. I don't know. Maybe, you know, I'd be very surprised if he beats Snyder.
Okay.
You know, has Cox ever beaten the number one wrestler in the world at the weight underneath him?
Don't know about that. That's a good question. I don't think he's wrestled. Yeah, it's Donnie Cherati from Iran, so I'm not sure about that. I mean, Taylor's number one right now, but Cherati, yeah.
Yeah. But, I would go with Snyder. Then, it'd be hard for me to pick between Cox and Taylor. I guess Cox had his number before, right? But it's close, right? Wasn't it real controversial?
Yeah. They went best of 3 in 2017, and then Cox went up after that. But then you also got Derringer coming up, too, so that's going to be a tough weight. But you would have to say it's between between Cox and Taylor. So who do you got there?
I would say I would go with Taylor. You know, I think
Respect. Okay.
You know, he won a world title. You know, and he's maturing. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I would go with him. You know. But,
and then last hypothetical,
they're both so good.
Burrows,
you know.
So good, and then it's like there's so many guys who aren't even like Bo Nickel's really good. Derringer's really good. If he goes up, that's going to be such a loaded weight. It's crazy to me to even imagine. My brother and I are going to the Olympic trials next spring. I can't wait for it. Last prediction for you. If Dake goes down and wrestles Burrows, who you got there?
Man, hard to pick against Jordan Burroughs, you know. Like, but if Dake's going to be the next Jordan Burroughs, he's going to have to beat him. You know what I mean? But I can't sit here. I wouldn't bet on that one. You know what I'm saying?
You can't.
He's already
these are such close
He's
matches.
man. Yeah. But if Dake's gonna be that guy, right? Like he's on the trajectory of being that guy, right?
Now's the time, you know.
Yeah.
So last thing for you, Steve, as we wind down, I ask everybody this is, if you had to look back on your whole career and your life, you know, how would you say wrestling has impacted and shaped your life? And, like, what has it taught you over the years?
Man, honestly, like, I think that it's taught me so many lessons. And at a certain point, it kind of became my life, you know, like, that's who I associate myself with. And, you know, that's how I feel like I'm a wrestler, and that's it. You know, like the lessons I learned from it, and the people I've been around, and all that is such a positive. And then you hit to a certain point where that's it. It's kind of it becomes your life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's no separation between something you're doing on the side versus that is your whole life. All of your thoughts, all of your effort goes towards that one thing. It's been a real pleasure and honor to chat with you, man. Like I said, you were the guy who a lot of us looked up to growing up, and it's been awesome to watch your career. And I love seeing the UFC fights when you're in the quarter, man. So we'll look forward to that. And just thank you again for taking some time to join the podcast this morning, brother. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on, man. That was a lot of fun.
That's the end of this episode, but definitely not the end of the show. For more episodes, please go to wrestlingchangemylife.org. Subscribe to us on iTunes. Give us a star rating. Show the love, baby. Show the love. Thank you so much. We'll see you again soon. Peace.